On a steaming August night in 2016, while most of New York slept, a 3-4-year-old technology entrepreneur named Ilya Lichtenstein sat hunched over his laptop in a cramped Manhattan apartment. His fingers danced across the keyboard with surgical precision. Within hours, he would execute the most audacious cryptocurrency heist in human history, a digital robbery that would eventually be worth $4.5 billion. But this isn't just a story about stealing money. This is a story about obsession, deception, and two people who believed they were smarter than the entire United States government. One was a Russian-born hacker with ice in his veins. The other was his wife, a wannabe rapper who called herself Razzlekhan and filmed music videos on the streets of New York while sitting on billions in stolen Bitcoin. For nearly 6 years, they lived a double life. By day, they were tech entrepreneurs, attending networking events and posting on social media. By night, they were money launderers, moving stolen cryptocurrency through a labyrinth of darknet markets, fake identities, and international criminal networks stretching from New York to Ukraine to Kazakhstan. This is the true story of the Bitfinex hack, the largest financial seizure in FBI history. And it all began with a single vulnerability in the code. August 2016. Hong Kong-based Bitfinex was one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges, processing millions of dollars in Bitcoin transactions daily. The platform prided itself on security, utilizing a sophisticated multi-signature system provided by BitGo, a cutting-edge security company that required 2 out of 3 digital signatures to authorize any withdrawal. It should have been impenetrable. Ilya Lichtenstein didn't see it that way. Born in Russia and raised with an aptitude for computers, Lichtenstein had immigrated to the United States and built a reputation as a tech entrepreneur. He was intelligent, methodical, and patient. And he had discovered something that Bitfinex's security team had missed: a fatal flaw in their multi-signature approval process. The vulnerability was elegant in its simplicity. While Bitfinex required 2 signatures for withdrawals, one from Bitfinex itself and another from BitGo, Lichtenstein found a way to bypass BitGo's approval entirely. He could effectively initiate and authorize withdrawals without triggering the required third-party verification. It was like finding a master key to a vault that everyone thought was locked with 2 separate keys. On the 2nd of August 2016, Lichtenstein made his move. Over the course of several hours, he programmatically initiated 2,075 unauthorized transactions. One by one, Bitcoins flowed out of Bitfinex's hot wallet, the portion of their holdings connected to the internet, and into wallet addresses that Lichtenstein controlled. The digital heist was surgical, automated, and devastating. When the dust settled, Lichtenstein had stolen 119,754 bitcoins. At the time, they were worth approximately $72 million. But Lichtenstein wasn't thinking about 2016 valuations. He was thinking about the future, when Bitcoin's value would skyrocket into the stratosphere. By the morning of August 3rd, Bitfinex executives discovered the catastrophic breach. Bitcoin's trading price immediately plunged 20%, sending shockwaves through the cryptocurrency world. Panic ensued. Bitfinex halted all withdrawals and trading. Customers who hadn't even been hacked had their account balances reduced by 36% across the board. The crypto community erupted in fury and fear. This wasn't just a robbery, it was an earthquake that threatened to destabilize the entire digital currency ecosystem. Investigators from the FBI, IRS Criminal Investigation Division, and Homeland Security Investigations descended on the case. But Lichtenstein had already vanished into the digital shadows. And he had a partner waiting for him, his wife, Heather Morgan. If Ilya Lichtenstein was the methodical mastermind, Heather Morgan was the chaos, the unpredictable element that made this story stranger than fiction. Morgan presented herself to the world as a tech entrepreneur, writer, and social media expert. She wrote articles about cybersecurity and business. She spoke at conferences. She cultivated a professional image on LinkedIn. But Morgan had another identity, one that she broadcast loudly across YouTube and social media. She called herself Razzlekhan, the crocodile of Wall Street. Morgan's rap videos were bizarre, vulgar, and aggressively confident. She filmed herself around New York City, spitting expletive-filled lyrics about being a business mogul and a badass. The videos were cringeworthy, amateurish productions that seemed more like parodies than serious artistic attempts. Internet users mocked her relentlessly. But while the world laughed at Razzlekhan's terrible rap videos, nobody suspected the truth. Heather Morgan was sitting on billions of dollars in stolen Bitcoin. Lichtenstein and Morgan lived in a Wall Street apartment in Manhattan, a fitting address for two people orchestrating one of the greatest financial crimes in history. To their neighbors and acquaintances, they seemed like typical, ambitious millennials navigating New York's competitive tech scene. But behind closed doors, they were building an elaborate money laundering machine. The challenge was enormous. Lichtenstein had stolen nearly 120,000 bitcoins, but they were effectively trapped. Every Bitcoin transaction is recorded on the blockchain, a permanent, public ledger that anyone can examine. The stolen funds were sitting in wallet addresses that investigators around the world were watching. Moving them would be like trying to spend money that's been dipped in radioactive dye. It would light up every alarm in the financial system. Lichtenstein and Morgan knew they needed patience, they needed strategy, and they needed help from the criminal underworld. So, they waited. For nearly 5 months after the hack, Lichtenstein didn't move a single Bitcoin. He let the heat cool. He let investigators exhaust their initial leads. He let the world begin to forget about the Bitfinex hack as other scandals and stories captured headlines. And then, in January 2017, the laundering began. Lichtenstein and Morgan's money laundering operation was a masterclass in criminal sophistication, a multi-layered scheme that combined cutting-edge cryptocurrency techniques with old-fashioned criminal tradecraft. Their first major move involved Alphabay at the time, the largest darknet marketplace in the world. Alphabay was an anonymous online bazaar where criminals bought and sold drugs, weapons, stolen data, and hacking tools. But Lichtenstein and Morgan weren't there to shop. They were using Alphabay as a giant washing machine for dirty money. The technique was elegant. They would deposit stolen bitcoins into Alphabay accounts, let the coins mix with other criminal cryptocurrency circulating on the platform, and then withdraw equivalent amounts into fresh wallet addresses. It was like pouring a bucket of red paint into a river. By the time it came out the other side, it had mixed with so much other water that it was nearly impossible to trace back to the original source. From Alphabay, the laundered Bitcoin flowed to cryptocurrency exchanges. But Lichtenstein and Morgan couldn't simply open accounts in their real names that would trigger immediate red flags. Instead, they created an intricate web of fake identities. They opened accounts at virtual currency exchanges using fabricated names and information. They created shell corporations to make their cryptocurrency appear legitimate, spinning stories about earning Bitcoin through advertising services. They even went so far as to prepare documentation to support these lies, building entire fictional business histories to convince exchange compliance teams. But even with fake identities, cracks began to show. Compliance officers at some exchanges noticed patterns, email addresses that looked suspiciously similar, IP addresses that overlapped across supposedly different users. Some accounts were frozen due to suspicious activity, and the couple's inability to verify their identities or explain the source of funds. Lichtenstein and Morgan adapted. When Alphabay was shut down by law enforcement in 2017, they pivoted to cryptocurrency mixers, specialized services designed specifically to obscure the origins of digital currency. They began converting Bitcoin into other cryptocurrencies like Monero, which offered enhanced privacy features. They purchased gold coins through cryptocurrency merchant services, converting digital money into physical precious metals that Morgan would later bury in hidden locations. The scheme became increasingly international. Lichtenstein traveled to Ukraine and Kazakhstan, meeting with Russian and Ukrainian middlemen who helped him exchange cryptocurrency for physical cash. The cash was then shipped to addresses in Russia and Ukraine before being funneled back into US-based bank accounts, completing the circuit. Lichtenstein, who spoke fluent Russian, moved through these criminal networks with the ease of someone born into that world. By 2020 and 2021, they were getting bolder and sloppier. They used some of the laundered Bitcoin to purchase gift cards from Walmart and other major retailers through specialized crypto to gift card services. They spent their stolen millions on NFTs, Uber rides, and even a PlayStation. They lived well, but not extravagantly enough to draw immediate attention. In total, Lichtenstein and Morgan successfully laundered approximately 25,111 bitcoins, about one-fifth of the total haul. That still left nearly 94,000 bitcoins sitting untouched in the original theft wallet, growing exponentially in value as Bitcoin's price soared. By 2021, those dormant coins were worth over $3 billion. But while Lichtenstein and Morgan believed they had outsmarted the system, investigators were closing in, and the couple's arrogance would prove to be their downfall. While Lichtenstein and Morgan were living their double lives in New York, a specialized team of federal investigators was methodically building a case that would span continents and years. The investigation was led by agents from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, the FBI, and Homeland Security Investigations, three agencies with complementary expertise in financial crimes and cybersecurity. They had access to cutting-edge blockchain analysis tools provided by companies like Chainalysis and Elliptic, which could trace cryptocurrency movements with unprecedented precision. The blockchain doesn't forget. Every transaction Lichtenstein and Morgan made left a permanent digital footprint, a trail of breadcrumbs that couldn't be erased. Investigators began the painstaking process of following the stolen bitcoins through their convoluted journey across exchanges, mixers, and darknet markets. But blockchain analysis alone wasn't enough to identify the criminals. The investigators needed to connect digital wallet addresses to real-world identities. That required old-fashioned detective work. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source: Walmart gift cards. Investigators traced the movement of funds and discovered that a personal cryptocurrency wallet address, beginning with the identifier 36B6mu, had received over $1 million worth of Bitcoin directly linked to the Bitfinex hack. That wallet had been used to fund purchases of gift cards through a specialized crypto-to-gift card exchange service. One of those gift cards was a Walmart card. And here's where Lichtenstein and Morgan's operational security catastrophically failed. The Walmart gift card had been redeemed through Walmart's iPhone app, using an account registered in Heather Morgan's real name. It was a $50 gift card that connected billions in stolen cryptocurrency to a real person living in New York City. Armed with this critical lead, federal agents obtained a search warrant for Lichtenstein and Morgan's Wall Street apartment and their cloud storage accounts. On the 5th of January 2022, they executed the search warrant. Lichtenstein and Morgan were home when the agents arrived. They weren't immediately arrested. The agents wanted to search the premises first and see what evidence they could find. The couple was told they were free to leave, but they stayed, watching nervously as federal agents combed through their apartment. What the agents found was damning. Hidden under the bed was a bag of cell phones labeled as burners, disposable phones used for anonymous communication. They discovered a hollowed-out book designed to conceal items classic spy tradecraft. As agents searched the apartment, Morgan made a move that would seal her fate. While trying to gather her cat, she grabbed her cell phone from a nightstand and appeared to attempt to lock it, apparently trying to prevent law enforcement from accessing its contents. The agents noticed, when forensic analysts examined the electronic devices seized from the apartment, they hit the jackpot. The computers and phones contained files with detailed information about the cryptocurrency addresses used to move the stolen Bitfinex funds, including the private keys that proved ownership and control. They found records of fake identities used to open exchange accounts. They discovered plans to acquire fraudulent passports. They uncovered the entire architecture of the money laundering operation. It was a complete digital confession. On the 8th of February 2022, just 1 month after the search warrant was executed, Ilya Lichtenstein and Heather Morgan were arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering. The stolen Bitcoin, which had been worth $72 million in 2016, was now valued at approximately $4.5 billion. The FBI announced it had seized $3.6 billion in cryptocurrency, the largest financial seizure in the agency's history. The impossible case had been solved, but the story was far from over. As Lichtenstein and Morgan sat in federal custody, they faced a stark reality. The evidence against them was overwhelming: digital breadcrumbs, financial records, physical evidence, and the seized devices containing their entire criminal operation. They had two choices: fight the charges and risk spending decades in prison, or cooperate with prosecutors and hope for leniency. They chose cooperation. In August 2023, more than a year after their arrest, Ilya Lichtenstein and Heather Morgan appeared in federal court and pleaded guilty. Lichtenstein admitted to conspiracy to commit money laundering, and, in a revelation that answered lingering questions about the hack's origins, he confessed to being the one who actually executed the Bitfinex breach. Morgan pleaded guilty to 1 count of money laundering conspiracy and 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States. While she hadn't participated in the actual hack, she had been a willing and active participant in laundering the proceeds, using her own financial accounts, creating fake identities, and helping to orchestrate the complex international money laundering scheme. The couple continued cooperating with authorities after their guilty pleas, providing information about cryptocurrency crime and assisting with related investigations. Prosecutors acknowledged this cooperation when recommending sentences. On the 14th of November 2024, Ilya Lichtenstein stood before a federal judge for sentencing. Despite facing decades behind bars, his cooperation and the government's acknowledgement of his assistance resulted in a sentence of 5 years in federal prison and 3 years of supervised release. 3 days later, on the 18th of November 2024, Heather Morgan received her sentence, 18 months in federal prison. The judge noted that while Morgan had participated in the laundering scheme, her role was less central than her husband's, and she had shown genuine remorse for her actions. The sentences marked the end of one of the most spectacular cryptocurrency crimes in history, but the impact extended far beyond Lichtenstein and Morgan. The U.S. Department of Justice's recovery efforts were unprecedented. Through multiple seizures in 2022 and 2023, authorities ultimately recovered over 108,000 of the stolen bitcoins, representing nearly 90% of the total theft. Those recovered funds were eventually returned to Bitfinex and its customers who had lost money in the original hack. The case demonstrated that cryptocurrency, despite its reputation for anonymity, was not a perfect vehicle for crime. The permanent nature of blockchain records, combined with sophisticated analysis tools and traditional investigative techniques, meant that even the most elaborate money laundering schemes could be unraveled. In the wake of the Bitfinex hack and subsequent investigation, cryptocurrency exchanges around the world significantly upgraded their security protocols. The case became a cautionary tale studied by cybersecurity professionals and law enforcement agencies globally. Today, Ilya Lichtenstein sits in a federal prison, serving his 5-year sentence. Heather Morgan has completed or is completing her 18-month term. The billions in stolen Bitcoin have been recovered. Justice, in the traditional sense, has been served. But the story of the Bitfinex hack raises questions that extend beyond individual guilt and punishment. How did a single hacker exploit the security systems of a major financial institution that had invested millions in protective measures? What does this case reveal about the vulnerabilities inherent in cryptocurrency systems? And most intriguingly, what drove 2 intelligent, seemingly successful people to risk everything for a crime they must have known they could never fully get away with? Lichtenstein was a skilled programmer with legitimate career prospects. Morgan was building a personal brand as an entrepreneur and writer. They weren't desperate, they weren't impoverished. They chose crime, not out of necessity, but out of what appears to be hubris, a belief that they were clever enough to beat a system designed by thousands of security experts and investigators. The Bitfinex hack forced the cryptocurrency industry to confront an uncomfortable truth. The technology that promised financial freedom and privacy could also enable massive theft. But it also demonstrated that the transparency of blockchain technology, when wielded by skilled investigators, could be a powerful tool for justice. In December 2024, Netflix released a documentary about the case titled Biggest Heist Ever, bringing the story to millions of viewers worldwide. The documentary featured interviews with investigators, financial experts, and those affected by the hack, cementing the Bitfinex heist's place in the pantheon of great American crimes. As cryptocurrency continues to evolve and integrate into mainstream finance, the lessons of the Bitfinex hack remain relevant. Security must constantly adapt. Criminals will always seek vulnerabilities, and the blockchain, despite all its complexity, remembers everything. Ilya Lichtenstein thought he had written the perfect code for the perfect crime. Instead, he wrote himself into the history books as the man who stole billions and lost everything. The crooked code has been debugged. The theft has been unwound, But the questions remain, echoing through the digital networks that connect our modern world. How much is freedom worth? How far will desperation or greed push us? And in a world where every transaction is recorded forever, can anyone truly disappear? The answer, written in the permanent ledger of the blockchain, is clear: no. The code always remembers, the truth always emerges. And in the end, justice finds its way through even the most elaborate labyrinth of deception.